I'm a Sami woman. I'm not a Swedish woman. I'm a Sami, but I have a Swedish passport. So, and I think I'm growing up as a Sami. And that's not a problem for me, but some people can say, well, you must be a Swedish person. No, I'm a Sami. I want to mention that it was a Sami woman, Elsa Laula, who was arranging this meeting in Trondheim that we will celebrate next year. So we hope that the Sami Parliament will decide that her birthday will be her Sami flag day that will celebrate it. So we're looking forward to that meeting. And in 2018 we will celebrate the first Sami meeting here in Sweden, in Östersund. It was the first Sami meeting in Sweden in 1918, and our organization, we will have our yearly meeting there in Östersund 2018. And you're all welcome to celebrate it with us. Hope maybe then Hugh have time to come and join us. I will send you a special invitation.
Great.
Yes, but I can shortly say about indigenous women. We have a good contact with each other. I was in Brazil for 2-3 weeks ago. I was invited to a conference to talk about indigenous women's rights, and it was one woman from the Maasai land in Kenya and one from indigenous women from India. So we have contact with each other, and I would say that the indigenous movement, it's run by the indigenous women. If the women wouldn't have been there, I think it wouldn't have been the same pressure on the government. You can see how it looks like in North Dakota. If you've seen on the news, it was 3 Sami women who went there and supported them. And then we also have Maxida and the women in your network. So I think the indigenous women, we have a lot of things to do, and we want to protect our land. We are not terrorists, but we want to protect our lands, and we can talk about a lot about that. But we have good connections with each other, and I can say it's UN. They have a leadership school for indigenous women. They have a course every year. And I was so lucky, I went there last year for 2 weeks course. And we were 21 women, indigenous women from the whole world who went to that school. And we are now 3 Sami women who have been to that school. And so that's very good. And it's supported by the UN, not by Sweden. But we have a long way to go, I know. I see some.
I have to say that the Sami women are taking over because they are not only smarter, but they are also more educated, and that's a big challenge for the Sami community because the males are in the bush and working with traditional work, and the women have higher education. And you can also see the Sami parliament in Norway maybe was the first parliament in the Nordic countries where you had the female majority, and now it's almost the same. So it's and that's a big challenge because you can see also on the Norwegian side in all segments of decision making, the women have taken over, and that's maybe good for many views. But the problem is still the man, you know.
Hugh, I know you've been involved in gender issues and Sami women issues as well in your research. Do you see that there have been specific obstacles for Sami women? I know some researchers have referred to them as having like a double stigma attached to them, being both a minority and women.
Well, certainly the situation of the Sami women today, what I know mainly about is from within the Samebys, the reindeer herding units, which in Sweden today are the only places where Sami rights can be exercised. As maybe you know or don't know, anyway, all Sami have the right to herd reindeer, but underneath the fine print it says, not all of you have the right to practice your right. And it's only the Sameby members that have the right to practice their right. And so that's a very small minority of the Sami people. And even then, if you look within the Samebys, because of the Swedish law, you have what's called a husbondebegrepp, which I don't know exactly how to translate into English. But what it means is that the family is supposed to be considered the reindeer herding unit, and you're supposed to, in other words, that family is going to vote for, how to use collective funds or something like that, or we're going to build a cabin here, we're going to build a cabin there, we're going to fly people out to the calf markings, or we're going to spend money on snowmobiles or different things. Then it's often been so that the man is the one who is considered to be the head of the household, and the women's reindeer, you get votes, your voting power depends on the size of your reindeer. It's like the whole Sami traditional reindeer herding has become made into a business according to the a kind of a stock market model, so that if you own more shares in Ericsson stock, you can vote more shares and you have more to say. And if you own more reindeer, you can have a higher vote in the Sameby. But since you're voting also kind of as a unit, family unit, the women's reindeer count as the man's vote, usually, even if she doesn't have, even if she has more reindeer than he does. Women have largely been disenfranchised of their voice within Samebys. Some Samebys apply this more than others. So anyway, and then you have problems. When I first came to Sweden, the law had just changed. It used to be just a little while ago, this was back in the 70s, early 70s, that if a Swedish woman married a Sami reindeer herder, she could be brought into the Sameby collective. But if a Sami reindeer herding woman married a Swedish man, she was expelled from the Sami collective unit. So I was curious when I first came as to why suddenly there were all these marriages going on. There were marriages going on every single day all over the place. And sometimes, the bridesmaids were really their kids who were teenagers. And I suddenly, I found out that it was because the law had just changed. So that women within the Sameby were now finally able to actually marry the people they'd been living with for the last, 30, 40 years. And get married to them, and they wouldn't be kicked out of their collective Sameby areas. So anyway, I'm just saying there are a number of things, and they still persist. Problems about if you are married within the Sameby and there's a divorce. Are you going to be kicked out or not of the Sameby? Your voting rights, your rights to your livelihood, whether you're a woman or a man, they can be dramatically different and in different ways, enacted in different ways by different Samebys too. There's a lot of flexibility, but basically the women get the short end of the stick within the Sameby because they're not classified as the herder. It's the herder who's the guy who is out there, whereas the women, they can cook the food and raise a tent and raise the kids and move camp and take care of everything else. And the guy's out there maybe running around throwing his lasso around in the corral, but he's the real herder. And the women's role doesn't quite count so much within the Swedish system. In other words, and we've constantly been campaigning to get these, what I consider injustices, rectified, but the Swedes just do not. Last time, as I said, they said, oh yes, you're absolutely right. This is terrible, and we've got to do something about it, but we can't do something about it right now because there's an investigation going on.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Say something?
Jump in
real
before
quick.
and then have a question from the audience. Yes.
I just want to say something very quickly. I'm a Sami woman, so of course I experience this all the time. But I'm also very, I think it's very important to talk about that. When you talk about Samis as one group, and the Samis have problems like issues that women are discriminated, you have to understand that this is also an issue outside Sami. This is a big issue, but when I speak of myself as a Sami, it becomes a Sami issue. But when Samis, like where I'm from, Jokkmokk, this issue is everywhere. Like even the women that are not Samis. And this is also like a result of a history when you forced Samis into a lot of things, so now you cannot afford to lose anything. And of course the women are the victims. That's how it gets. I mean, you can see it everywhere. It's very important to understand that this is not from the Samis often. Of course, there are assholes, manly Sami assholes. But it's also something you have to have a wider perspective to this. Why does it look like this in the Sami villages? Why does it look like this? The Sami villages are built up today not from Samis, but from non-Samis that forced Samis into things, that took land, that made up rules to follow, and if you do not follow them, you will lose your membership, you will be kicked out. I mean, so this is something that is so much bigger than just an issue in the Sami village among Samis. This is something forced to you, and that you have to build up a structure. We're separated today, but I lived with a reindeer before. He's the father of my child, and when she was born, I mean, it's hard. Reindeer learning is so tough. He needed to be out 24/7 to make this thing go round. And I needed to stay home with the child. I couldn't go out there and do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and maybe get home to the kid, and then he will sit there. No, he had to be out. So, and my Swedish friends and non-Sami friends, they looked at my wife when she was a baby, and I was a stay-at-home mom. Like, what are you doing? Aren't you a feminist? Of course I'm a feminist, but we have a totally different culture, and he cannot afford to be home. That is not how it looks. If the predators get too close, all of these reindeers will be gone, and that's our food, that's our life. He has to be out. So yes, you force me to stay at home because you force him to be out 24/7 because you cannot look away one time. Not one time. You have to have eyes on your shoulder the whole time. So that's just what I tried to say. Like, this is not something that Samis might have created. This is something so much bigger. And this is the result of history. But we cannot choose today because they made up the rules for us a long time ago. So I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah.
Thank you. And we do have a question.